It's Hyper Halloween!
So I'm not sure how I'm going to top Killer Snowman and Monsterds in terms of ridiculousness. Actually wait, yeah I do. Skin Deep. Skin Deep features some of the weirder movie baddies I've ever seen, and I just spoke about a giant shit monster. Skin Deep was written, directed, and produced by Gabriel Bartalos. It's listed as a comedy horror film, and it does certainly attempt its best at both. While there are some scenes that made me laugh, there were others that were corny or just didn't make much sense to me at all. In any case, let's discuss the plot, if you want to call it that. Also, apologies in advance, but this movie does need to be discussed in detail, so I'll be looking at a majority of the scenes from this movie. Skin Deep starts off with a person being branded with an S and a D. The SD is used as a title transition, and it's actually a pretty cool effect. I only mention this because of, well, how real it looks. And that's because it is real. Someone legit had SD branded onto their skin for this movie. I also wanted to mention it because, well, it's very weird. It honestly lets us know what we're getting ourselves into before watching the movie. In any case, we also get the opening kill where we meet one of the main antagonists, the Surgeon General. If you're curious what this character looks like, well, then take a peek at the picture used in this video. He kills a random trucker and smashes up his truck. The scene changes to the Rockwell family, currently on a road trip for a family vacation. The mother of the family is filming everyone as they drive. There's Phil, the father, Gloria, the mother, Matthew, the son, and Tina, their daughter and eldest child. This is a very awkward scene that really only serves to provide exposition as the characters introduce themselves and explain what they're doing. The Rockwells then come across a totaled car and speak to the weirdest cop in cinema history. After driving off from their awkward exchange, they get a flat tire. We're getting into wrong turn territory now as Phil walks to a nearby gas station to find help. The gas station also doubles as a store and triples as a diner, and there's also a garage there as well. Phil is told that the garage isn't open during the day, and he accepts that like it's completely normal. The gas station clerk invites Phil and his family to her nearby house because, well, her son fixes cars. So Phil and the family go. When the family arrives, they see a house that's full of antiques, oddities, and a Super Nintendo. Again, more wrong turn vibes here. The Rockwell family sits down to have a meal with the gas station clerk's family, which I'll refer to as the Skin Deep family from here on out. The gas station clerk, called Granny, introduces her family to the Rockwells. Surgeon General is at one end of the table. He's disguised himself wearing the face of the trucker he murdered, and somehow this does fool the Rockwells. Plates is one of her sons. Plates is actually played by Warwick Davis, and he honestly must have owed someone a really serious favor to star in this movie. Last we meet Brain, a guy with a giant head. He's also wearing a bag over his head to hide his massive brain and I guess to blend in. There's also a voice that comes from a speaker, but that isn't really mentioned much afterward. Gloria starts taking pictures of the Skin Deep clan, and this pisses off the Surgeon General. He springs up and kills Gloria. Plates also springs into action and starts using his amazing power to throw plates. The Skin Deep group manages to kill all the Rockwells except for their daughter Tina. Brain saves her because, well, he wants to keep her. I tell you, with all that brain, he's clearly thinking with the wrong head. They end up keeping her in a room covered in newspaper, because I guess they think she isn't housebroken. And after tearing it down, Tina sees that she's actually bricked in. But the bricks appear to be held together with like cake frosting. And I'm not even kidding here. When she removes the bricks, it honestly looks like cake frosting. Brain arrives with some gross soup and money. And I normally don't go into this level of detail for these, but it's just so bizarre that I feel like I need to say it out loud and for others to hear what I saw. In any case, a group of bikers show up for a bite to eat in the next scene. The group is called the Ancient Ones, and that's probably because they're really old. All but one decide to leave after the meal because, well, he has the hots for Granny. Tina escapes the house, and this leads to the old man dying. Just him though, Tina is spared again. We are also treated to the most random slow motion scene ever. In fact, it's so nice, they show it twice. We get some more scenes between Brain and Tina, and Brain reveals that his name is actually Brian. but that's really just a joke that goes nowhere. We also get a little more backstory in the family as well. Tina ends up pleading with Brain to let her go, even though she's very clearly capable of running away at any point in time, but we also learn that the creator wouldn't approve. You see, the creator created Brain, Plates, Granny, and the Surgeon General. And if you're wondering why he created them, no worries, we never figure out why. All Brain wants, though, is to be a normal person. Just a normal person that can run through the streets naked. And I'm going to leave that here and talk about it more later. The Skin Deep crew want to make Tina one of their own, again, for reasons. They force a wedding dress on her and tie her to the front of their truck. They go searching for a group of randos to kill and do just that. Brain doesn't want Tina to become a killer though, but Surgeon General doesn't care. He puts dirt in her hand and makes her pour it into their victim's mouth. Tina shouts out why, and I mean, hey, we're all thinking it at this point, so why not ask it? Even though Tina shows a lot of distress in the previous scene that I mentioned, she's okay in the following scene. She lures Brain into a false sense of security and then pokes a feather into his brain. She scoops out a portion of his brain to reveal blocks. They pop out and move around to say love, but then Tina steps on them and they spell out hate. Again, I just need to say these things out loud because I'm still having trouble comprehending what I even saw. But also during this time, the bikers return for revenge for their fallen friend. Granny shows up and puts these little peace symbols on their heads, which ultimately explode. The explosions don't kill all of them though, and then we get a fist fight between one of the bikers and Plates. The biker ends up being the victor in this exchange, and it's honestly one of the funniest scenes in the movie. Tina, watching this, still in the Skin Deep house, eventually discovers the creator in the basement. The creator is a headless bodybuilder, because why the hell not? We then discover that the Skin Deep family drains the blood of their victims in order to sustain their own lives. We see this as Tina watches Granny insert a tube into her neck. Tina does manage to kill Granny by scrunching up the tube while it's in Granny's neck. Tina also interacts with the creator. He states that he represents attraction, lust, conquest, flirtation, strength, and many other things. Humans create to destroy and often use violence to get what they desire. He sees no reason that these creatures couldn't follow suit. He creates these creatures to kill in the name of peace, which I guess is just like in the previous scene where the Skin Deep family used the peace symbol to kill people. We also see how these creatures are created. The creator's chest opens up and this little weird creature springs out at Tina. The Surgeon General also shows up and accidentally bites the small creature. Tina ends up shoving the Surgeon General into some wires and he's electrocuted. Tina does the most sensible thing at this point and reaches for the creator's crotch. Now I hear you laughing, but honestly she does it because, well, it's labeled dynamite. Why wouldn't she? Tina grabs a stick for the creator, another for the Surgeon General, and more for the house itself. After destroying everything, Tina rides off to the sheriff's office, but in a twist you can see from Mars, the sheriff is one of the bad guys. We're then treated to the lovely sounds of Tina screaming no throughout the entire credits scene. So, Skin Deep. It sounds like an award-winning movie, right? Well, while the plot and acting is completely ridiculous, one thing this movie does have going for it are the costumes. Well, specifically the Surgeon General's costume. I think that the Surgeon General's mask looks badass, and it's honestly what attracted me to the movie in the first place, given that it's featured on the box art. I don't know, if I saw this thing charging at me, I'd be scared shitless. Plates and Brain, on the other hand, not so much. Speaking of Plates, I'm not entirely sure what Warwick Davis is doing in a movie like this. I couldn't find much on why Warwick did this movie, which is honestly surprising to me because, well, he's like the most well-known star of the flick. Like I mentioned before, maybe he owed someone a favor, but it's cool to see him in another horror film role, even if it isn't as iconic as Leprechaun. One interesting fact about this movie is that the director did not acquire any permits to film anywhere. This includes the scene where Brain streaks down a busy street. And yes, there is a scene in the movie where he does this. I kind of alluded to that earlier. Granted, I'm not sure what kind of permits would allow something like that. Honestly, probably nothing. But they could have probably had actors walking along the streets if they had permits. Sadly, the actor who played Brain was locked up for indecent exposure for streaking in public. The DVD I have contains an awesome behind-the-scenes featurette showcasing the directors, actors, and crewmates' opinions. They all discuss their experiences and confirm a lot of the trivia I mentioned, such as Jason Dugry, the actor that played Brain, being arrested for a night. And they also show the recipient of the brand used for the title intro. It also shows off how they accomplish some of their practical effects, which I find really cool. Another fun fact, the actress that plays Granny, Liz Little, was actually married to one of the bikers, Joe Little. Joe played Big Joe in the movie. He's the biker that had his head blown up by the peace symbol. Now, I've made comparisons between Wrong Turn and Skin Deep during the beginning of this review. I actually hadn't realized how many similarities there were until I rewatched Wrong Turn recently. It's interesting to me because I don't think this is the only comparison to other horror films. Skin Deep also sort of copies House of a Thousand Corpses. Funny thing is, I saw Skin Deep first, so when I finally watched House of a Thousand Corpses, I thought Rob Zombie ripped this movie off. It's just kind of funny because both movies are throwbacks to 80s style horror films. I'm not sure that Gabriel Bartalos necessarily copied off Zombie either, but it's just interesting that both movies have similar plots and were released around the same time. It's almost like Battle Royale and The Hunger Games or Never Let Me Go and The Clone is Horror. Sure, two different people can write something similar around the same time, it's just kind of funny how with this one it was like 1 year after the other. At the end of the day though, Skin Deep is a pretty ambitious film for what it is. The costume design is pretty awesome, the set design is unique, it has a lot of funny scenes, especially with the old bikers, and the effects are absolutely amazing. I would honestly love to see a movie with the Surgeon General character, something in the same vein as Hyp3r. The only negative thing I have to say is the acting is kind of overall terrible. For instance, it seems like Granny is clearly just reading the lines while being filmed, and she isn't really reading them that well either. I had rented this movie from Blockbuster back in the 2000s, but never finished it because of how weird it was. I'm glad I finally came back to it though, because this movie is definitely an interesting watch. I would definitely recommend watching this film, if not for the impressive visuals, then for the wacky story. It even just got a Blu-ray release from Severin with some new special features, so if you're interested, check it out.